Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. If you're in the market for a big luxurious barge, then you've got plenty of choice. But what if you don't like to flaunt your wealth? What if you want something a bit more discreet? Well, I think I've found the answer. It's this fourth generation Audi A8, which ran from 2017 all the way until... Actually no, thinking about it, it's still in production. This is the current model, albeit a pre-facelift. This particular model is known as the D5, and it's a 2018 50 TDI, which confusingly isn't a 5 litre, it's a 3 litre turbo diesel V6. Does anyone else find Audi's new badging method confusing, or is it just me? Anyway, this thing flies under the radar so successfully, it might as well be invisible. It's the very definition of inconspicuous consumption, which is a bit strange when you think about it. Because it's nearly 5.2 metres long, it's smothered in chrome, and when it was new it cost upwards of £70,000, and yet it still has that air of stealth to it. Stealth wealth. You can probably tell from the way I'm talking that I'm already a big fan of this car, but then I've always liked A8s. Alright, the first generation, which ran from 1994, was a bit before my time, but I love the second and third. So what can I tell you about this fourth generation? Well, it's available as a standard wheelbase, or a long wheelbase, which gives you a bit more legroom in the back. Though even this standard wheelbase model gives you more interior space than the outgoing A8, so unless you're going to be doing a lot of chauffeuring, I don't really see the point in a long wheelbase. This is a big enough car as it is. Up front there are lots of different engines to choose from: a petrol, a diesel, a hybrid, or a 4 litre twin turbocharged V8. That one's found in the S8, and it is an absolute gem. Although saying that, this 3 litre turbo diesel V6 does deserve some praise. It's the everyman choice. I know from the outside it might sound like a transit van, but from the inside, thanks to a load of sound deadening, you can't really hear it. It's very refined, and it's quite easy to forget that you're driving a dirty diesel. This particular model makes 282 horsepower, and it gives it a 0 to 62 time of under 6 seconds. Watch this. You really don't need to go much faster than that. I'm gonna lose my GoPro there. There's just so much torque, it really pins you into your seat. And on top of that, in addition to that performance, this thing will do in excess of 50 miles per gallon on a motorway run. And it's Euro 6, which means you can drive it into any city and not have your pants pulled down. That is the very definition of a great all-rounder. All A8s use this 8-speed automatic gearbox, which does a really good job. It does everything you'd want from an auto box, in that most of the time you forget that it's there. It just makes your life easier and more comfortable. The steering's very light and over-assisted, but on this kind of car, it doesn't really matter. I think that's what you want, actually. It's all just completely and utterly effortless. Worryingly though, I've discovered this is one of those cars that's quite easy to get points on your licence. Because it's so smooth and effortless and quiet, it's very easy to speed in this car and not realise you're doing so. You know how all cars have a sweet spot? That speed that they just cruise at without you thinking about it or putting any effort into it whatsoever. My Green Range Rover, for example, that speed's 58. Well, with this, it's 94. And unless you live in Germany, that's going to get you in some trouble. I picked this up from the previous owner the other day, and I had about a 2-hour drive back. So I was just minding my own business, enjoying it really, listening to music, and then glanced down and realised I was, speeding. I mean, thankfully this big virtual cockpit does make it quite easy to keep your eye on the speed. The display's nice and clear and crisp. Oh, she flies. Something clever about this actually is that it has various drive modes. Now most of the time I just keep it in comfort, but if you're late to a party, or, you know, let's be realistic here, a meeting, pop it into dynamic and straight away it transforms. The throttle response gets sharper, steering gets sharper, the suspension feels a bit firmer. I cannot believe the difference that's made. For such a big car in dynamic mode, it feels surprisingly nimble and agile. It just gets a whole lot more focused. I don't like that though, I'm an old man at heart, so we'll pop it back into comfort. Perfect, there we go. Speaking of this car's sheer size, you'll be reminded of that every time you try and park this in the car park of your local supermarket. It's a big old bus, this. Thankfully you've got parking sensors everywhere and a rear camera, so it could be worse. As you'd hope from a luxury wafter like this, it rides beautifully. It's so comfortable. As you probably know, here in the UK the roads are scandalous. They're like the surface of the moon, and yet this just irons them out completely. What's also great is that you get Audi's legendary Quattro 4-wheel drive system. Now this was always a big selling point for the A8 because things like the 7 Series and the Mercedes S-Class and the Lexus LS didn't have it. Over time though, they have caught up. But still, this Audi Quattro system is pretty unbeatable. It just gives you the confidence that you can use it in the depths of winter and you're not going to be left stranded spinning your wheels. Styling wise, I've already mentioned that this thing just flies under the radar without making a song or dance about how expensive it is. But when you do remember that it exists and you stop to look at it, you'll realise it's quite a handsome car. I think it's a really balanced design. Where this car's really at home though is on the motorway. You can sit here and just eat up the miles, just completely lap them up without feeling any fatigue whatsoever. You also get loads of driver aids like adaptive cruise control, lane assist, it even reads traffic signs. It's all very clever, isn't it? But then you wouldn't expect anything less from the Germans, would you? If I'm being critical, I think the front grille's a little bit too much. It just gets away with it, but personally I'd have toned it down. Moving around the back though, I love the rear light bar. It just looks really modern and futuristic. I think it wears a dark colour really well. I think it's one of those cars that suits the chrome, which I usually detest. I think the design of these wheels is a little bit busy, but somehow it all just works. Moving inside the A8 then, it's a lesson in minimalism. It's like going into a Swedish architect's house. It's very sophisticated. The vents up here completely disappear into the dash when you're not using them, reminiscent of an old Phaeton. Watch this. Off. There we go. I love this natural wood they've used. The choice of materials really is top drawer. I also love the little mood lights. It's like being in a swanky London hotel. I love the Alcantara you get on the door cards, and everything feels beautifully made and screwed together. Nothing creaks or rattles or squeaks. And bear in mind, this is a 5-year-old car now. Nearly 6 actually. Everything just feels really solid and sturdy. My biggest issue with this car though, and this isn't unique to Audi, everybody seems to be doing it, and it does my head in. What they've done is got rid of every single physical button and replaced it with a fiddly touchscreen. Why did they do that? I just think it's really dangerous because, alright, it's fairly quick to respond, but you don't know where you are with it. So you have to take your eyes off the road, which is a bit dangerous because remember, you'll be doing 94 miles per hour everywhere you go. And then on top of that, as if that wasn't bad enough, when you're finally done with the car and you turn everything off, everything's plastered with fingerprints. Looks a mess. This car was clean this morning and now look at it. Looks like the window of a cake shop next to a Weight Watchers meeting room. I don't suppose you are now, but if you're the CEO of a big car company and you're watching this, please stop doing that. Give me buttons that I can just blindly navigate. Not this sort of nonsense. Anyway, aside from that, everything else is really good. I love the fact you've got a crystal clear head-up display system. The seats are very comfortable and supportive. The driving position's very good, the visibility is very good. It's all, well, very good. I've said it already. I'm 5'11", right? And I've got loads of headroom, loads of elbow room, loads of leg room, and look how much room there is behind me. It's a very spacious car, this. There's just something about driving an Audi A8. When I bought this, you know, I'll be honest with you, I did consider selling my Range Rover and keeping this. That happens without fail every single time I buy an Audi A8. I just think they're a really easy car to live with. Take this model for example. I've got heated electric seats, a heated steering wheel, soft closed doors. That's pretty much all I require these days. If I'm being critical again, then the door pockets aren't particularly big, nor is this space under here. Could be bigger. But on the upside, you get 2 cup holders. I also like this wireless phone charger you get under here. It clips away neatly, which takes away any temptation you might have of using your phone while you're driving. You don't want any more points now, do you? I'm not a massive fan of driving at night, but driving this car at night is a real pleasure. The lights are superb. You get this head-up display system, which makes your life easier. I love the virtual cockpit. And you get some jazzy ambient lighting. It's just a really nice place to be. If you're lucky enough to find a parking space big enough for this car at your local supermarket, you'll be pleased to discover the boot offers 505 litres of space. It's massive. Alright, technically it's not as cavernous as a BMW 7 Series or a Mercedes S-Class, but it's still plenty big enough. In 2022, the A8 went under the knife and had a mild facelift. And in my opinion, they went a little bit too far. I don't care much for the facelift grille, it's a bit aggressive, and that's not what this car's about. In terms of reliability, according to Consumer Reports, you shouldn't have any serious issues. As of yet, owners haven't reported anything untoward. All I would say is, like anything, you need to look after them, service them properly and regularly. Service the engine every 10,000 miles, service the gearbox every 60 or 80,000 miles. I've got this booked in next week with Audi Macclesfield for a minor service and an inspection. And I think they've quoted £228, I think. Which admittedly does sound quite expensive for fresh oil and a new filter, but it means that I can sell this with full Audi service history. And I just think maintaining that is quite important. Now, if you opt for the diesel, then I wouldn't be surprised if you have some sorts of EGR or DPF issues. That's fairly commonplace in the world of diesels. The only thing you can do to counter that is make sure you do plenty of miles in it, and at least every other fill-up, make sure you use premium diesel. I'd avoid all that cheap supermarket diesel. I don't think it does your engine any good at all. Used prices here in the UK start at around £25,000, and you know what's coming, don't you? It's an awful lot of car for the money, isn't it? 25 grand for a car as complete as this. I just think that's a bargain. If you want a low mileage example, then be prepared to spend 30. And again, same old advice really. Make sure you look for one with proper service history, preferably Audi or Specialist. Both sets of keys, decent tyres, all that sort of stuff. Something else to mention, I know this might sound like common sense, but if you're bothered about resale values, then make sure you pick a safe colour. And I think that's about it. I think the thing you've got to remember is that all cars in this class are, well, class. So it all comes down to personal preference. But I do think the A8 takes some beating. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.